Hello everyone, welcome back. As part of today's lecture, we are going to set up something called build agent in order to scale up Jenkins performance. And we will also understand the Jenkins master slave architecture. Okay. And then we will also go ahead and then set up a build agent. And then we will securely connect our agent with our master. And then finally, we are going to register our build agent in Jenkins master UI. And then we will perform some builds in order to run those builds on the build agent. In this way, you can reduce the workload of Jenkins. Let's say that you are working as a DevOps engineer with your team and they are using Jenkins as a CI/CD tool. Whenever you look at Jenkins user interface, you always see so many jobs in the build queue waiting to be executed. So take this picture as an example. So do you all think that this is a good design? So there are 55 jobs in the build queue. So just imagine, right? Let's say you have configured a build job and you have configured to be triggered using webhooks. So as soon as developers commits the code, the build should kickstart instantly, right? So what would happen in that scenario? You already have 55 jobs in the build queue. Whenever developer makes a code change, what do you think Jenkins would do? Would that go into the top of the queue or it would go into the bottom of the queue? It would definitely go into the bottom of the queue, right? So the developer have to literally wait until remaining 55 jobs to be executed, correct? So why this is happening? Why? Because whoever have designed Jenkins architecture, they have not considered scalability in their mind. So how you can fix this? So this is where you can offload Jenkins performance by adding something called build agents or slaves. So now let's try to understand what do you mean by build agent and then why do we need them? So build agents are nothing but a machine which can perform your build, right? So in this specific scenario, Jenkins is going to assign the build and then build agent would actually pick up the job and then it would run the job. And then, Jenkins UI or Jenkins master UI is going to present the results. Okay. So the build agent can be of any operating system. It can be Linux or Windows or Mac OS. Okay. So depending on the project requirement, if you want to scale up Jenkins performance, you can configure any build agent of, any operating system type. And an agent can be both static as well as dynamic. In this specific lecture, we are going to set up a static build agent. Okay, we will talk about that, once we get started on the lab exercise. Okay, you can also configure dynamic build agents as well, which would be, set up on demand. And then, after the job is done, it would disappear. So you can use Docker or Kubernetes in order to achieve that. Okay. And then whenever you configure any build agent, you can also customize, with some labeling and all, so that in your build job, you can, force the build job to run on those specific agents if you wanted. Okay. So generally you would go for build agents in order to, achieve parallel builds or in order to, distribute the load of Jenkins master. Okay. And then one last point to note is there is no user interface for build agents. So build agents are nothing but slave machine, which would be managed by, Jenkins master or Jenkins controller. So build agent would do the job and then it would give the results back to master and then master would actually presents those build results. All right. So now let's try to understand the Jenkins master slave architecture. So if you look at this diagram, you can also configure Ubuntu build agent in order to perform Java and Maven related build, or you can also configure another Linux agent, and you can install npm package to build, Node.js application, or you can also install Java and Maven on the same machine, and then you can also use that build agent even to perform both Maven as well as npm build, purely depending on the project requirements. And let's say you're also working with the team, they are completely based on Microsoft technology stack. You can also configure Windows build agent and you can establish, JNLP. You can use JNLP protocol in order to securely connect your Windows slave machine with the Jenkins master and then you can actually perform your Microsoft based build as well. Similarly, you can also configure macOS build agent, and then you can establish secure connection between Jenkins master and then macOS build agent, and then you can perform the builds on that machine as well. Okay, but we will actually pick up a specific use case. We will set up brand new EC2 instance, and then we will configure that as a build agent in order to perform Java and Maven related build. All right, great. So now let's get started, guys. So now let's quickly go through the prerequisites. Yes, you need to have Jenkins master up and running, and we also need to configure our build agent as well. So I'm going to set up brand new EC2 instance, and then I'm going to configure build agent on that machine. So how are we going to do it? Once you create your brand new EC2 instance, and then we are going to install Java and Maven on that, and then we will create SSH keys, and then we will upload our public keys from master into slave machine. In this way, you can make sure your Jenkins master is able to securely connect to the slave machine. So if you look at this diagram, so how do you think Jenkins master is going to securely connect with the slave machine using SSH keys? And then once our SSH connection is verified, and you can register your build agent in Jenkins master user interface, and then you can go ahead and then perform build on that slave machine. All right, so now let's get started, guys. So I'm going to take you guys back to AWS console, and you can see here I already have Jenkins master up and running, and then I also have my Tomcat EC2 instance up and running. So this is my Jenkins master, and then this is my Tomcat. Okay, so now we need to create a brand new EC2 instance in order to set up as a build agent. So click on launch instance. So I'm going to say build agent. We are going to use Ubuntu 22.04, and you don't have to have any fancy configuration. So I'm okay with the 2 GB of memory, and there is no user interface for your slave machine. So I'm going to go with default port number, which is port number 22, so that our Jenkins master can securely connect with the slave machine. That's fine. And I'm going to go with 18 GB of root volume. Perfect. Let me make it GP3. Awesome. So that's it, right? Perfect. Click on launch instance. If you see here, I'm already connected to Jenkins master through iTerm. So let me also connect to the slave machine as well through iTerm. So I'm going to open one more window. Fantastic. So I'm connected to my build agent. So now let's continue with our instructions. All right, so now let's go ahead and then configure our slave machine. Okay, so let me change the host name for now, so that you would know where you are connected, right? So this is actually a Jenkins master. I know I mentioned this as a slave, so let me exit. I'm going to connect back again, so it would show the changes immediately. There you go. And then let's go ahead and then perform apt update, because this is a brand new EC2 instance. So we have to configure our build agent to have latest software packages installed. And then we need to install both Java and Maven, because we are going to perform Java related build. So let me install JDK again, right? Purely based on the project requirements. Let's say you also want to install npm. If you wanted to perform node related build, you can also do that as well on the same machine. Fantastic. So Java got installed. You can verify. Awesome. Now let's also go ahead and then install Maven as well. Fantastic. Maven also got installed. Wonderful. And then let's go ahead and then create a user called Jenkins. Okay. And then we will also go ahead and then create a directory on the slave machine, so that whenever slave is performing builds, it is going to keep all the build related information on the specific folder. So let's execute this particular command. Okay, wonderful. So now, if you look at this diagram, the way Jenkins master is going to connect with the slave is using SSH keys. So we'll have to go back to master and then create SSH keys using SSH keygen command, and then we'll have to upload the public keys into the slave machine. So now let's do that. So this is our master, right? So now I'm going to create SSH keys using this particular command. I already have a key. I'm going to override that. That's fine. I'm not entering any passphrase. That's fine. So now the keys got generated and everything have been stored in this specific folder. So now let me try to view that. Okay. So now that is the public key. So what we have to do is, we have to upload this public key into the slave machine, and this is the folder that is where, the keys are going to be uploaded. Okay, perfect. So now let me come back here and then copy the public keys. Perfect. So let me save this. Wonderful. So now how do you ensure that you are able to securely connect to the slave machine? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say SSH, and then, so remember we created a user called Jenkins, and then I'm going to, mention the slave node IP address, which is nothing but, or you can also use the DNS name, doesn't matter. Just type yes. Wonderful. And then type bash. Wow. See, this confirms that, I was able to securely connect from master into a slave machine. Wonderful. So now I think I can come back. I can exit. I can go back to master. Wonderful. So now let's look at the instructions, right? So pretty much we are done with our configuration. All we have to do is, go into Jenkins master user interface, and then we can register our slave node, right? So now let's do that. So this is our master user interface. So go to manage Jenkins, go to nodes. So this is where you can add your agents. You can add as many build agents as possible. Okay, literally there is no basic rule of thumb. Okay, so click on new node. So let me call this as build agent. If you wanted, you can also say Java build agent, and then click on permanent agent, and then click on create. Wonderful. So now it is asking the number of executors. So basically, if you want to configure Jenkins to perform concurrent builds, again, this is purely based on the CPU cores you have, right? But ours is, I just created t2.small, which is going to have only one CPU. So I'm going to leave it like this. That's fine. And then root directory. So if you guys remember, if I can show you the history, remember we created this folder. So I'm going to specify that folder. This is where, Jenkins is, the build agent is going to keep all the build related information. And then labeling, I can say, okay, no space. Okay, sorry, I had a space there. Okay, so labeling, I can say slave, that's fine. And use this node as much as possible, definitely. How to launch it? Yes, we are going to use SSH keys. Okay, so what is host here? Yeah, you can use DNS name or agent's IP address, doesn't matter. And credentials. So this is where it gets a bit tricky. So click on add Jenkins. So you'll have to add your Jenkins master private key. Okay, and then username, if you guys remember, we created a user called Jenkins, right, on the slave machine, and then click on add. So this is where we are going to upload our Jenkins master private key. So let's get back here. So I'm going to copy the private key like this. Make sure you don't upload this key anywhere else. So I'm going to delete those key right after the lecture is done. Click on add. You can also specify some description so that you can recognize that. So let me say Jenkins private key added by Coach AK, July 2025. Perfect. Click on add. There you go. And then you can go ahead and then select that from the drop down. It is important that you add that so that, sometimes you may have too many entries. So you should be able to distinguish. Wonderful. So basically what we are trying to do is we are registering slave node information or the build agent information, right? And then host key verification strategy, we are going to say manually trusted. That's it. That's it, right? So now let's go ahead and then click on save. So you can see here now, build agent is, should try to come up, click on log. Wow. So you all see here, it says that agent is successfully connected and online. And if you can go back to nodes, so you should be able to see both master, the built-in node is the master, and then Java build agent. This is our build agent or slave. Wonderful. And you can also see how much space we have and whatnot, right? Fantastic. So now let's get back to our master here, right? So now I have several jobs, isn't it? So now let me try to run a job. Okay. So let's see, right? Let me just try to click on build now. Let's see where the build is going to run. So you can see here the build is actually running on master itself, right? But remember when we started our lecture, we talked about setting up something called build agent in order to reduce the workload of Jenkins master, isn't it? But why master is running the job itself? Because master is free, so master also can obviously take the job if needed, or master also can delegate the job to one of the available build agents, isn't it? So now if you want to force the job to run on the slave machine, right? So how do you think you can do it? Then you can also use this option. You see here, when you say restrict where this project can be run, you can say our agent label, right? I think we configure something like a Java build agent. Make sure you don't give any space after that. There you go. And this also confirms that this label matches one of our build node. Perfect. So now go ahead and then save it. So now whenever you perform build, it means that the job will always run on that particular agent. You can see here, right? So now you can see here the job has completed. So the entire job ran on our build agent. So yeah, so that's how guys, that's how you can configure something called build agents in order to scale up Jenkins performance. But please do understand guys, master also can take the job, and master also can delegate the job to one of the available slave machine when you don't specify anything. For example, even when you don't specify anything, master can still delegate the job to one of the available slave machine. But if you wanted to force the job to run on any slave machine particular, then you'll have to go with this option. All right. Awesome. I hope this lecture was really useful. I'm really looking forward to meet you all in the next lecture. Thank you so much.